Quite a remarkable result indeed, but deserved on the day. Mexico, therefore, top Group F after their opening encounter with Germany. Sweden and South Korea, well, they play tomorrow afternoon with a 1 o'clock kickoff. So not the start many were expecting to Group F, but that will certainly be one of the high points in his managerial career. I mean, I don't know whether we can call this a low point for German football, but they certainly weren't the Germany we're used to seeing at the start of a World Cup, because normally they start all guns blazing, they're out of the blocks quickly, they've won their opening match for the last 7 World Cups, but didn't quite happen for them today. Is it all down to how Mexico approached the game?
Well, I think a bit of both. We touched on some of the things that may harm the chances of Germany in this World Cup. They've got a pretty inexperienced side. Keith made a good point before the game. Mertesacker, a seasoned pro, very experienced. He was a player who was a squad player in Brazil. And sometimes you need, when you've got young players on the pitch, sometimes at half-time when there's a more experienced or an older player, just to put the arm around and say, listen, we're 1-0 down, don't worry about it, we'll be fine. All the guys on the bench here, apart from Marco Reus, who's had a lot of injuries over recent years, they're all happy to be there. So there's no one player who would go up to one of the other players and encourage them, because it's the first World Cup for most of them. Then you've got some players who are in the World Cup in the starting 11 for the first time. Touched on it before, 7 players from the World Cup final, from the World Cup team from 2014 still in the team.
Yeah.
I think what they lack is leadership. You know, you saw today, I think, to take the responsibility, to calm things down, to do the right thing at the right time. Could be one tackle, it could be one cross, it could be one thing that changes the whole game. They just didn't have it today, and we shouldn't forget it still took a superhuman effort from Mexico to beat the German side. But there certainly will be questions asked, because, you know, who's to say that things will be different in the next game?
Yeah, but just on the subject of leadership, Didi, at the Confederations Cup, they beat Mexico 4-1. It was a far more inexperienced German lineup on that particular day. So, I mean, what was the difference?
Well, without discrediting the Confederations Cup, this is a completely different ball game. You know, Confederations Cup is a pre.
It's like a ceremonial tournament.
A ceremonial tournament a year before. You know, Mexico may not have taken the best team. The best team in the competition was Chile, which they beat in the final. Germany, they did ever so well. Chile didn't even qualify for the World Cup. So I think that puts that achievement into perspective. Yes, they did well, but then it's different when you play in a tournament like this with just young players. Now there's older players. Some may feel intimidated, so you need just the right balance and mix. And obviously they had to deal with 3 or 4 players retiring since the last World Cup. I just don't like the whole setup. I've never seen a German team as open as I did today. And this has nothing to do with experience or whatever. This is just common sense that you can't commit too many players forward with half an hour to go. There were situations early in the second half where they attacked 2v1. And time again, there were opportunities for the Mexican team. And, you know, I've got to say they thoroughly deserved that win, because the tenacity showed, the way they defended. It was an outstanding performance.
Yeah, and Keith, as much as we enjoyed watching Mexico's approach, which was almost throwing caution to the wind, particularly in the first half, at this level of international football, it's quite unusual that actually pays dividends in the long run, particularly against a country like Germany.
Well, we wondered how long they would be able to keep it up for. The simple answer was they kept it up for 45 minutes, because in the second half they had to show different strengths to gain the 3 points. In the first half, we'd mentioned about maybe there might be signs of rustiness in the German team. Certain players weren't up to match fitness. I think that was evident. And when you're trying to build up that match sharpness, there is nothing worse as a player when the opposition take the game to you, don't let you settle. We mentioned before, we both played in a certain position. Kroos and Kandire were not able to take those 2-3 touches that they like. Kroos, we mentioned him in the build-up, likes to probe, likes to play. He wasn't given that opportunity. Herrera and Guardado in the first half were like rashes on them, did not let them settle. Second half, totally different kettle of fish. Germany asked a lot of questions but couldn't find the answers, because Mexico stood very tall to it.
I know this might be a difficult question to ask, because we're not in the dressing room with the Mexican team and their manager, Juan Carlos Osorio, but we do know that he takes an unorthodox approach to the game. We mentioned it in the build-up. How much credit, Didi, can you give to him for Mexico approaching the game the way they did, particularly in that first half?
No, I think you've got to give him huge credit, but then you need the players to do what he asked them to do. But I think what they did today, and we talked about it in recent tournaments, are teams too cautious? You know, is a football still as attractive as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
You know, I think today we saw a team that if you're brave, if you're happy to take a chance at times, you know, with always, obviously, with the insurance of having 4 or 5 players behind the ball, you can actually be successful. And the aggressivity they showed today, the way they went into tackles, they went into, you know, every challenge. You always felt the Mexican or the green shirt is coming out with the ball. And that's down to the manager. They had the issues before the start of the tournament when they went, or when they had the party, when the manager and the team got sick. But sometimes this can bring you together. This can unite you. And he could have made a decision and say, you went a step too far, leave 1 or 2 out. But the way they played today, Herrera in the centre of midfield, I think he was at the heart of that issue surrounding the party before the World Cup. He was absolutely outstanding today. And you've got to give him great credit that he produced a team spirit, he produced a team that was able to go toe-to-toe with Germany because they didn't nick a win today. They deserved to win. Yes, they had a share of luck at times in the second half, but the way they got blocks in, the way they stuck together, the way you show composure in possession. Of course they got tired in the second half, but still they created a few chances, and you've got to give him huge credit, and he'll be delighted. Now they've got to obviously look to the next game, because it would be a shame if you beat Germany and don't qualify. Yeah, I mean, it's a very refreshing result in many ways, and their approach is very refreshing, because if we look back to the earlier game when Costa Rica took their typically cautious approach, 11 men behind the ball on many occasions during the game, and then you see Mexico taking this, as I say, it's a refreshing approach in football these days, and showing a huge amount of bravery, and to see it come off for them, I mean, it's very good for football, isn't it? It
is good for football, and look, we want to see that type of football, but equally I think we're educated enough now to know that, for instance, Costa Rica, they haven't got the personnel to play in the way that Mexico have just played against Germany. They haven't got the physical attributes, they haven't got the technical attributes. Mexico were set up in such a way where they stopped Germany doing what they do very, very well. They caused a threat the other way. There was an unbelievable belief and togetherness in how they were going to go about it. They were unplayable in the first half, and they probably should have been more than 1 up. They would have been disappointed at the break. And I said in the second half, the show, the character, the resilience to keep going, how much it meant. But they have to take advantage of that, because job's certainly not done yet with Sweden and South Korea to come.
I think what makes it even more impressive, the best players, and you saw, in Özil, in Toni Kroos, Khedira, Muller is a class player who scored, goals in abundance. Yeah. They're top-class players. These players always find time on the ball. They play their game at their own pace, and they always find time and space on the ball. They didn't get that in the first 45 minutes. Even the best players, and that makes it even more impressive, that when you play against this type of opposition, they were so aggressive. They were so, they hunted in packs. They didn't give Germany a minute's time, and even the best players, when you do put them under pressure and you go together, it's very hard for them to play, and that's why they took, a midfield of a player for Real Madrid, Juventus and Arsenal. They took him completely out of the game, and this is why they, deservedly led 1-0 at half-time and eventually won the game.
It presents a very interesting challenge now for Jogi Löw, doesn't it? Because he's so used to German dominance in many ways, and he's the most successful international manager of all time. 106 wins out of 161 internationals after today. But now he's got to try and lift this squad. I mean, what positives can he take from that performance by Germany today?
Well, the positive, I think Brandt had one of the best, if not the best, chance towards the end with a shot that clipped the post. Neuer came through unscathed. I'm not sure whether you can take too many positives from the game. The issue I see now, you can justify a loss against a team that's played out their skin today. That happens. We've got to get away from that thinking we are Germany and we start the tournament in the semi-final. Far from it. There's other teams. And I think what they lost is that air of invincibility, which they had with the other guys we mentioned before the game, with Schweinsteiger, Lahm, and Klose in the team. I think teams were scared of them. And you can feel that as a player. You feel when the other side is intimidated, they do make mistakes, and you force him into mistakes easier. I think that is gone. And I think the biggest issue for him now is, because the talk won't be just about football, the talk will be what damage that Özil Gundogan saga has caused before the game, and whether this is one of the reasons. And he will have to answer a lot of questions now, which are not only about football. And I think that's the thing now, because people will ask questions about other things. It may divide the team. I'm not sure whether this is a united team. There were one or two incidents which you don't see when Werner didn't play that, or when he had a shot in the first half, Özil told him he should have passed it to the other guy, which I didn't see in recent years. So, the question's certainly not any less, and I think he's got a because this is the toughest spot he's been in his 10 or 12 years as a national team manager. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how he confronts this challenge. And speaking of the issues that will be raised as a result of this defeat for Germany, I suppose Sané will be to the front of people's minds, some people's minds, who will say, well, why isn't he there?
Yeah, he certainly would be for me. Myself and Diddy were chatting during the game, and I'm saying, would Sané, and Diddy made a great point, the fact that they're so deep, Mexico, we need space to run into. But I still think him as an impact player. Look, we don't know about the dynamics in terms of what has gone on behind the scenes. Rumours that he's been a little bit big time, hasn't fitted into the way they do things. But in terms of personnel available, I do think they lack pace. They all like to play in those central areas, the width of the 18-yard box, the German players, the likes of Draxler, Ozil, even Rice, who comes on. So they do lack a player of the qualities and the attributes that Leroy Sané possesses. But if he doesn't fall within the team instructions, then there's very little point in having him there.
Yeah, so, well, he's not there, and he certainly isn't an option for Jogi Löw at this stage. I suppose one thing we got to have a look at, and was the way Germany, they penned Mexico in, but why weren't we getting some end product from them?
I think the rustiness was there, certainly. We have to give Mexico a lot of credit. This was very much the picture for much of the second half, right from the off. Mexico quickly had to make tactical changes. Osorio reacted very, very well, but Toni Kroos at the hub of it, recycling possession time and time again. But if you look at the structure of the way Mexico set up, it quickly turned into a back five. No real options. And the one thing I would go back to the Leroy Sané point would be, he has the ability to beat defenders in 1v1 situations, whereas when you look at Ozil, Draxler, Rice, who came on, Muller is arriving in a different type of player. They need that interchange, they need that interplay, the little give and goes, whereas Leroy Sané has got the potential to drop a shoulder and create something out of very, very little. OK, well, let's look at the chances, Didi. I suppose a similar question, why weren't they finished? And maybe were Germany, and I'm not looking to give them an out, were they a little bit unlucky at times today? Yeah, but I'm a big believer that you make your own luck, and if you deserve the luck, you get the luck. And I just feel that Mexico, they defended in numbers, and you know, everything thrown at Mexico, they always got a block and always got a leg out. And if you actually look how often the goalkeeper has been tested, there's not an awful lot. This is not good finishing. You know, this is a chance from 15, 60 yards, which he bends past the far corner. Here again, he's a yard late. You know, you've got to anticipate these situations, and sometimes you have to take a chance, especially in the last third. This was Royce when he came on. It's a tough angle. It's a half chance, I would say. And the best chance is probably this one, or not even yet. This is another one. It's a good chance, but it's just not good finishing, because the goalkeeper had it covered all the way. And they just didn't do enough to deserve. And here, this is just great defending. You know, every time a Mexican was out of position, his teammate covered for him, and he helped him out. And this is the best chances. It's Gomez who came on. You just have to finish it better, because there's no excuse for that 6-7 yards out. And it was a combination of fantastic defending, poor finishing, and then when they needed a bit of luck, was just right towards the end when Brand hit the shot. Yeah. They clipped the post. That was the best strike they had on goal. Because if you look at it over the 90 minutes, I don't think the goalkeeper made an awful lot of saves. There wasn't one save where you say, well, this was an unbelievable save. So they didn't test him enough for all the half chances they did have, and I don't think they can have any complaint whatsoever. We didn't wonder. You said at half-time that it would be very difficult for Mexico to keep that high energy attacking play going in the second half, and you were right. But when the opportunity presented itself, I mean, it was like the charge at the Light Brigade when they broke, wasn't it? They still had moments, didn't they, where they really caused. Germany were so aggressive in their approach, so they were left very, very vulnerable. And Hummels and Boateng, they didn't take advantage here. I'm amazed Hernandez doesn't go himself. I thought he would have dropped the shoulder, gone himself, mistimed the pass, just slightly overdone. But this was in the second half. But the tactics from the first half, even when things were on an even keel, they left themselves so vulnerable, especially when you factor in Boateng in particular, not up to match speed, that little bit rusty. He wasn't getting much protection. Kimmich constantly going down the right-hand side. Kroos and Khedira didn't take the responsibility on to fill in. It was fewer in the second half, but yet they still had this Leon's effort. Elected to take the effort on. I think that was his fourth or fifth effort on goal. But they were still a danger in the second half. But first half, I would question a lot of his tactics in terms of how he set it up. And I think he was, if anything, not expecting Mexico to play in that type of fashion.
Did he underestimate them?
I'm not sure whether they underestimated, but I had the feeling that the Germans, they wanted to do the nice side of football. We all want to be in possession. It's nice to pass the ball, be in possession. You've got your own rhythm. You've got to do the dirty side first, because you need players who work together to win the ball back. And I had a feeling today that when they didn't have the ball, they didn't want to know. When they had the ball, they all wanted to play. And it was just, I think that the setup, the balance of the team was wrong. I'm not sure whether it's down to personnel or the way they play, because usually that's a formation they always play. But I just felt, especially in centre midfield, you know, Kroos and Khedira, they certainly didn't win enough challenges and balls to compete. They didn't compete for the first 45 minutes. In the second half, they had a lot of possession. But even then, when these counter-attacks, when the Mexicans swarmed out to have these counter-attacks, there was no protection whatsoever. And, you've got to do the dirty work first to get the right, to have the right to play with the ball. And they certainly didn't do that side of the game well enough today.
But normally the way they earn the right to play is that they do dominate the possession of the ball, so they tire you out. They're that good at it, the way they keep possession. When you go and press them aggressively as a team, they're able to bypass that because they're that good. Yeah. But Mexico were so effective in the first half that never got going.
Yeah, so what does Jogi Löw do now for the game against Sweden? I mean, does he make a raft of personnel changes? Is there the depth in the squad to do that? I mean, we suggested beforehand that there was. So what do you think he's going to do?
I don't think there'll be many changes, one or two maybe. I think he just needs to tweak that right-hand side for me in terms of Kimmich, because Boateng looks very, very vulnerable, and I'm sure opposition managers' teams will be targeting that area of the pitch. For me, he looks heavy, doesn't look fit. Central midfield, defensively, you can get in. If you are a team that can string passes together, you can get in behind their midfield and get at the back two, in particular two centre halves, quite easily. But I would expect a reaction. I don't think this is a crisis. Jim mentioned in commentary, Spain lost their first game 2010, can go on and win it. Still fully expect Germany to qualify from the group.
No, not a crisis, but certainly a surprise. And unfortunately, Didier, it has fallen to you to talk us through the goal that claimed the 3 points for Mexico. Our apologies. I know you may not enjoy this too much, but plenty to admire in the goal.
No, absolutely. It's just wonderful football here. They win the ball, and this is a great layoff from Chicharito. Hernandez gets the ball back, and then he waits for Lozano to arrive. Comes on his right foot. You think the chance is gone, he sticks it into the near post. But they showed everything which made them win the game today. Here, tenacity, winning the game, being aggressive, and then have the vision and also the composure and the technical ability to expose the German backline, because within 3 passes there in the opposition's box, Hummels got to do better. But it's one thing identifying a problem of the opposition. It's another thing taking advantage. And the decision-making of Mexico was simply fantastic today, because whenever they felt there's a chance to break, they did so. And, you know, it's a lot at this level is about game management, what to do at the right time. And they felt at 50, 55 minutes, we get a bit tired, 60 minutes, we made a couple of changes. We've got to sit back now, and we really have to be careful when we do go, when we commit players forward. They didn't have many counter-attacks in the second half. When they did, though, they were always dangerous. And I've got to say, from a mentality point of view, the way they approached the game, the way they managed the game, the way they handled the game, this was top class.
Yeah, it really was fantastic, and the tens of thousands of Mexicans who have made their way to Russia for the World Cup will certainly enjoy their evening.